thing on? I can't figure it out. Hold on. Sorry. It's supposed to like catch in the lip? How hard do you have to press?
This is a good start.
Hi everyone, here we are. It's episode 5. It's been a long journey. We have baked our cakes, made our soaks and our fillings and the frosting, stacked them, leveled them, crumb coated them. We're so close. And now it's really time for the fun part, which is the final decorating phase. So this is what we're gonna do to finish off our 3 cakes.
When making layer cakes at home, I like to kind of stick to a certain philosophy of decorating. The first rule of decorating is that I think it should look homemade. A wedding cake is one thing. You can bring out the fresh flowers and the fondant and all the really pull out all the stops. But with a cake you're having at home with friends for a birthday celebration or something like that, simpler is better always. Just because it's homemade looking doesn't mean that it looks unpolished or not finished. I think that these cakes strike a nice balance between being very achievable at home, but also really polished looking and of course delicious. Okay, my second rule of decorating is that whatever is on the cake should be an indication of what's inside the cake. So the decoration should cue you about the flavor of the cake itself. For instance, our coconut cake, coconut on top, coconut flavor inside. My third rule of decorating is that not only should the decorations be edible so that no one has to worry about pulling them off the cake before they eat it, but the decoration should enhance the flavor of the cake. I have some examples of decorations that do not really enhance flavor at all. This is a flower. It's made of mostly confectioner's sugar. It adds sort of like a weird pseudo-professional look to the cake that I also don't love. I want people to know that I made it myself, and these I did not make myself. So this is some edible glitter. While it's edible, I would not call it delicious at all. Just because you can eat it doesn't mean you should. These are some dragées. I saw an article when I was looking up dragées that the FDA said they're no longer safe to eat. I don't know about these. I just ate one. Dextrose, maltodextrin, corn syrup. That's a different show, I guess, where I read the ingredients. They don't taste good. That brings me to my fourth and final rule of decorating, which is that you don't need fondant to finish your cake. You've probably seen a fondant cake, even if you don't know what it is. But this is fondant. It's mostly made of sugar, and it's sort of like has a Play-Doh consistency. I remember the first time I saw a cake with fondant in a pastry case, and I was like blown away. I couldn't believe how you would get frosting that smooth. The point is you can't get frosting that smooth, and that's why you use fondant. But anyway, it's rolled out in slabs like this, and then used to cover a cake that already has a base layer of buttercream on it. I'll taste a little bit of it. Ooh, oh, has not a good aftertaste. Oh. Ew. It's really bad. If the choice is between fondant and chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream, I'm definitely going to take chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream and pretty much anything else besides fondant. So now you know my 4 basic rules of decorating. Now let's decorate cakes the right way. The main decoration for our birthday cake, as you can see, are rainbow sprinkles. I love sprinkles because not only does it look incredibly festive and fun, but it's also a really good way to hide any kind of flaws in your cake. To decorate our coconut cake, I pipe the meringue around the sides. Then I use the torch to toast the meringue. That both stabilizes it and adds great color contrast. Then finish it with toasted coconut on top. Our carrot cake is decorated in, I think, a really beautiful kind of homey style. Lots of beautiful peaks and swirls on the outside that takes advantage of the really beautiful supple texture of the frosting, and then really fun, colorful, wavy candied carrot ribbons on top.
So at this point, we're no longer in the baking realm. We are in decorating land, which is squarely in the arts and crafts universe. There's a lot of different tools you can use for cake decorating. We're keeping it pretty simple, and here's all the equipment you're gonna need. Flexible spatula, a couple bowls, a spoon, small and large offset spatulas, metal bench scraper, a piping bag, your cake turntable if you have one, and a torch. There we go. Make sure you know how to use it first. And to decorate our crumb-coated birthday cake, we need rainbow sprinkles and chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream. The technique that I'm going to show you for decorating our birthday cake is like a smooth icing application. So I'm going to keep the sides and the top really clean, really smooth, and it's actually not as difficult as you might think. This is a technique of applying icing where you really put more on than ultimately stays on the cake, because it's easier to take off frosting than it is to apply more. So we overshoot the mark knowingly, and then we take it off as we go. If you're not sure if you have enough, you probably don't. This is where if you have any little bits of chocolate in your frosting, you're really going to see it. So you can see I have a little bit here. That's just where the chocolate went a little bit solid in the frosting. I'm just picking those out. And now working all of this down the sides. Now that I have frosting worked pretty much down and around everywhere, I'm going to use my small offset spatula and some extra frosting to fill in any gaps. A lot of times it happens up around the very top of the cake. This is sort of the final stages, but this part, which is smoothing, can take a little while, and you can often go over and over and over your work. Generally, my feeling is that the least amount of fussing you do, the better, which means if you get your cake to a point where you think it looks pretty good, just stop. You know, it's never going to be perfect. So now I have my bench scraper and begin the process of sort of removing the frosting. The icing from smoothing it has pushed the frosting up to the sides, to the top of the cake. So now I want to go through with my small offset and gently scrape that ring of frosting off and dragging it toward the center, and that's going to give me kind of a clean right angle. This part takes practice. I am not entirely skilled at it. Okay, I'm ready to move into the final phase of smoothing. And this is where I'm going to use the torch. You don't have to have a torch. You could just achieve the same thing by dipping your bench scraper in warm water and then drying it really well. But at this point, water is absolutely the enemy of buttercream, so keeping it as dry as possible is really important. I also don't want to warm it too much because I could burn the chocolate in the buttercream and melt it. So just a hello. There we go. The idea is that the hot bench scraper is going to melt just that very top layer of frosting and make it very smooth. Just a couple passes is all it really needs. I'm also at this point not applying any pressure with the bench scraper. It's barely really skimming the side. Okay, and I'm calling it. Now I want to focus on the top because that's actually going to be the part that's exposed. This is like the most annoying thing in the whole world. You know, I've only ever made layer cakes at home, and I haven't made like 1,000 of them the way that a professional baker has. So there's some really amazing content on YouTube or Instagram where you see people using incredible technique and skill to make a beautiful cake. But as I said, we're going for something homemade because I said so. Stay on this show. As I like to say, perfect is the enemy of good. So I'm very happy with this. I'm ready to move on to the final decorating step, which is applying my sprinkles. Nothing says birthday cake like rainbow sprinkles. So I'm going to basically entirely coat the sides. At no point is my hand actually touching the cake. I'm just letting the sprinkles kind of run down along the side. And it works well because any contact between the sprinkle and the frosting makes it adhere, so all the sprinkles that have fallen off, I can use them on my next go around.
Is this fun for you?
Oh, yeah, this is fun. This is the best part. Everything's done. Now I just get to play with sprinkles. Right, so here is our final birthday cake. I really like leaving the top plain. You can write your birthday message on top. Also, it's a nice blank canvas for candles. I love the rainbow sprinkles and the chocolate frosting. It screams birthday. There's no mistaking what kind of cake this is. So we went with a smooth chocolate frosting look on our birthday cake. I applied freshly whipped buttercream to the top of the crumb-coated cake, smoothed it across the top, down the sides. Then I used the bench scraper and did several passes to take off icing, and then did a final pass with the heated bench scraper, final smooth over the top, and rainbow sprinkles around the sides. I know I said that was the final step. The real final step is getting it off the cake turntable.
This can be a pretty dicey operation. Your best bet is to use a large offset spatula like this. It easily gets underneath that cake round. And again, this is why it's so useful to have a cake round, because it allows you to move the cake from place to place. So I slide my offset spatula underneath the base. Then I lift it up to allow me to get a hand underneath. I've never dropped a cake. I came really close once when I was assembling the one and only wedding cake I ever made, and the groom's mom came up to me to talk to me about the cake, like right as I was putting the top tier on, and the whole thing almost slid off. All right, back to what I was doing. So now I take the offset out, and I put it underneath where my hand is, so I can get my hand out, and then I slide out the spatula. So you can see, not too bad, not too scary. Also, obviously, don't try to move the cake from like 5 feet away. Get the cake right next to the box. One thing to remember is when you have these little tabs that slide into these little cuts in the box, I like to have those stick to the outside so that they don't curve inward and hit the cake. So even though it may be a little bit backwards, I slide those so that they are sticking outside, if that makes sense. So there it is. It's very stable. Nothing will happen to it. It's protected, and then the lid goes on. I also put the lid over, so the lid is on the outside, not the inside. And there you go. So anyway, good luck. It'll all be fine. Don't stress out too much. But that, to me, is the easiest way to get a cake from point A to point B.
Here's everything we need to decorate our crumb-coated coconut cake. Italian meringue and large toasted coconut flakes. This time I'm going to apply the icing using a piping bag. There's no tip because I'm just going to pipe smooth coils. I'm going to start at the base, and while spinning, I'm going to simultaneously pipe. The key is applying really even pressure. It's also a good idea to start and end your coils at different places because then you don't have one area of the cake where you see all of the different seams.
We were just using a straight pastry bag with the very end snipped off to pipe our Italian meringue, but a real pro move is to use something called pastry tips. I have a couple different examples here. Basically, they create all different shapes and textures in the icing when you press them through a pastry bag. This is our pastry bag filled with our chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream. It has something called a coupler inside, which is this little plastic piece, and it allows you to change out your pastry tip without having to fill a whole new pastry bag. You put a pastry tip right on top and then screw the cap over top. It holds it in place and allows you to remove it when you want to change. There's categories of pastry tips. There's round tips, star tips, all those different things. So here's the first one. It just makes, I don't want to say hair because that doesn't sound very appealing, but really fine, fun little strands, like spaghetti. This is a star tip. If you use a really large star tip, sometimes you see that like on top of cupcakes. And then a plain round tip. You can kind of make little pearls, which I like. Often doing a little string of pearls like this is a really nice way to cover the very base of the cardboard round. If you want something a little more delicate looking, you can use just a round tip that's a little smaller. You can also use this to write. I recommend practicing before you write directly on the cake. You don't have to have all these pastry tips to pipe frosting. All you really need is a Ziploc bag or a pastry bag, but it is a lot easier to make all sorts of fun shapes with an assortment of pastry tips.
Because my piping is not so beautiful, I'm going to go back in with holding my small offset at an angle to try to create like a spiral pattern. I'm going to cover the top in our toasted coconut, so I don't have to actually do this very precisely. Now, the most fun part, which is torching the sides of the cake where the meringue is. I'm going to move the torch around pretty quickly because the toasting happens very fast. I really like the color variation. The little peaks in the meringue toast more than the rest of it, so you get like little areas of where it's darker. Just make sure to like keep it moving. You can always go back and add more color. It smells sort of like s'more campfire in here. The last thing is just to top it with a little coconut because, again, we want to kind of telegraph that that's what the flavor inside is. So this is just large flaked coconut, unsweetened, that we toasted in the oven, and I think we're done. You didn't think it was going to look this good because I piped it so poorly, but the torch makes your mistakes actually look like you did them on purpose. It happens in really a matter of seconds, and it is like a total transformation of the cake. To add the final decorations to our coconut cake, I piped rings of meringue around the sides of the coconut cake, then put the remaining meringue on top and spread it into an even layer. I went in with my small offset spatula to create grooves, then torched the meringue to golden brown and topped the cake with toasted flaked coconut. I'm going to stop eating the toasted coconut, which is kind of my favorite snack. But we have no time to waste because this is only our second cake. We have to move on and finish up our carrot cake. Here is our crumb-coated carrot cake, and here is what we need to decorate it. Cream cheese frosting, fresh carrots, granulated sugar, and water. So for the carrot cake, I am going to create some candied carrot ribbons, which is a pretty simple process. I'm going to use a Y peeler to just make some long strips. And then it's a very simple process of gently cooking the carrot in the simple syrup so that they candy a little bit. Once the candied carrot strips are dried, we're going to toss them in a little more sugar, and they'll be slightly sticky from the simple syrup, and the sugar will kind of create like a sparkly effect. So that'll be our decor. Ow! hot. One thing I can do now is give them a little shape on the tray so that they'll dry like this. Might be kind of fun. Does it look too much like bacon? That's what I would really like to know. So into the oven. My carrot ribbons are ready to come out. They've dried. While they're still hot, I'm going to sugar them. If you have sanding sugar, which is a little bit more sparkly, you can use that. I'm just using granulated. Only once they're cool, we'll take them off the parchment and put them on the cake. While my carrot ribbons are cooling, I'm going to apply the final layer of frosting to the carrot cake. The look that I'm going for with the carrot cake is really taking advantage of how beautiful and swoopy my cream cheese frosting is. So I'm going to go for a free-form, really textured look. I don't want to say that it's messy, but kind of the more loose you are, the better it looks. The large offset spatula is, I think, what a lot of people prefer, but I like the control of the small guy, so I like to use this a lot. And all I'm going for is an even all-over application. I don't have to worry about finish. And now I'm really almost done. The final phase is to use a spoon just to make some really beautiful swooshes and swoops and swirls in the icing and to try to get really just some beautiful areas of texture. This is a great method, I think, for those who don't feel really comfortable with some of those more precise movements or techniques. There's really no wrong way to do this. What I like about this is it looks really delicious. Like, it looks like that frosting tastes really good and I want to eat it. And now all I want to do is place my little carrot ribbons. They do kind of look like strips of bacon. I'm trimming the edges just to make the overall shapes a little bit more pleasing. With any kind of decoration, it's really easy to go overboard and put too many on. So I think taking a slightly minimalist approach, even though the cake is, I wouldn't really describe the cake as minimalist. So I might just make something of like a border around the edge. For the final frosting application on the carrot cake, we put a big mound of 3 to 4 cups on top, quickly worked it across the top and down the sides. I added some more frosting around the bottom to create one even layer of frosting, and then I just went in with the back of a spoon and created all sorts of free-form swooshes and swirls, trying to emphasize the peaks until I cover the entire cake. Our last cake is finished. I'm so happy with the way it turned out. Mostly it just looks super delicious, and I'm very excited now to cut into all of our cakes for the final visual reveal and the final taste. Whatever you're talking about, put it on hold. No, both of you. Okay, sorry, the cake waits for no one.
3 days?
It's the final moments of this very long process. All right.
These are insane.
That's, I know, the
They're-
carrot cake is literally insane.
They're maybe bigger than I thought they were going to be.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that happened. Let me be very clear. This is not Gourmet Makes. I'm not really asking for your input about how good it is.
What are you looking for?
Praise.
Validation?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
So that's the slice.
Amazing.
Let's give it a taste.
The flavors are really nicely balanced, and I love the kind of interplay of like the darker chocolate with like the milk chocolate.
I love the ganache.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ganache is
Really
It's a nice
really
filling.
Working with the milk.
It's a great birthday cake because I think kids are going to like it, but it's like, it's still grown up in
absolutely.
flavor and
Flavor.
balance. I think the risk always with layer cake is like it just goes crazy sweet, you know, and that's kind of all you can taste. This one's a little hard to cut because of all the coconut, so I'm just going to kind of slide the knife underneath. All right, ready for this reveal?
Oh, yeah.
Looking good, if I do say so myself. Am I going to be able to do this?
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it is. I got it. Andy, it's an enormous bite.
I know, but
Go for it.
It's
Is
going to
there
be my
almond
favorite.
extract in here?
The white cake has a little bit of almond extract.
This tastes like a Samoa.
Gabby, Gabby,
Don't worry.
Gabby, get in here.
Look at all these clouds.
Take this fork. Do you want your own slice?
No.
Are you sure?
No. I would
Because
never.
we have.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
You have a crowd there waiting.
Here, maybe
No.
I would try some with the meringue in there.
It's very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
And actually, flavor-wise, the coconut comes streaking through.
Yeah.
Just it's really
No,
good.
and not-
The texture of that little bitsy coconut in
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, it gives you like something to chew on.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the final cake. The plate is too small. So let me see if I can stand this slice up. It's going to be a challenge. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to stand on its own. Just, hey, Andy, why don't you just stand there and hold it up the whole time?
There. See, like that works.
Very well done.
Oh god, it's going forward. Oh god.
Please let me just cut another
Okay.
slice. Just eat that one.
Oh god.
Andy's
invested too much. He's invested too much. He
Oh,
can't let it
God.
go. Andy, just move place. Just let it go. Come
Yeah.
on. Oh god.
Andy, someone will eat it. That poor cake slice.
The cake is phenomenally moist. Just with like tropical, massive.
The
floral
pineapple and the
flavors.
rum.
The pineapple and the rum. It kind of goes to this like. There's a kind of a lot going on there with that.
Yeah, I think the layers need to be thinner. The thing about carrot cake is like with the carrot and walnuts that are in there, it's a really hard cake to like split or to even level.
Oh, sure.
So just putting less batter in the layers overall.
You wouldn't want necessarily like 5 interior layers of the cream cheese frosting, but yeah,
Why
the
not?
layers are. I don't know.
Maybe if you went
I like
thinner.
Take the frosting off of most of my cakes.
Oh, Chris.
You know.
I think that layer cakes are one of those things where almost no matter what, it's greater than the sum of its parts. You put everything together, and hopefully everything's harmonious and complementary because it's a lot of work. So,
A lot of work, big payoff.
big payoff. There you go.
All right.
Oh my God, thank you guys.
Cool.
I-
All right.
Thanks, Claire.
Well
Oh,
done.
thanks.
Okay, you gotta go now.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed, as I did, going through the entire process. I just can't stop staring at that leaning slice of carrot cake. I'm gonna wrap this up before it falls over. My sincerest hope is that someone that was not a baker or didn't think of themselves as a baker, watched this series start to finish and now thinks to themselves, like, it's not that scary. Can I just leave it there? Hold on now. Sorry, everyone wants to leave. Sorry. It's not that funny. I'm just delirious. Okay, sorry. You're kidding. I'm not touching that thing. Okay. Ready? I'm back. The point is, my hope is that someone who doesn't consider themselves a baker watched this series, and now the idea of making a layer cake is less daunting, less scary, and it really is something that anyone can do at home with a little bit of patience and the right equipment. Thank you for watching season 1 of BA's Baking School, which is all about layer cakes, and coming up, season 2, about a different pastry project.
Great. Let's get there.
I cracked.